1968's Planet of the Apes is a part of a revolutionary era of science fiction films, followed by movies such as 2001: A Space Odyssey, Star Wars, Alien, and more. What makes this film stand out are its wild concepts that you have to buy into in order to enjoy the story. But I'll say, if you look past the outdated costumes, invest in the plot, and really think about the central ideas here, you'll find yourself really enjoying this film. It exceeded my expectations in a lot of ways. Hello, and welcome to Studio Cinema Saturday, the show where we review movies old and new, the ones you don't like and the ones you do. My name is Kael McCall, and today I'm reviewing 1968's Planet of the Apes. The film was directed by Franklin Schaffner. The cast follows Charlton Heston as George Taylor, Roddy McDowall as Dr. Cornelius, Kim Hunter as Dr. Gira. This beginning of the film is really cool. Of course, it looks outdated, but the effects are semi-stylistic in this older film, and I end up really liking most of them. I think about the way they portray space, the way they do lightning and thunder with no rain is also just really cool. There's some cool things about the effects in this film because they don't have all the revolutionary equipment and technology that we have now, so they really had to get creative here, and it's done really well. I'm going to start with some spoiler-free thoughts in case you haven't seen the film. I really enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. It has a magic to it just for being an older sci-fi film, but it's also really well written, it's well made, the idea is there, they're not crazy for asking you to buy into these wild concepts. They just are asking you to buy into them, and you have to kind of connect these to real world themes. There was just a lot more thought put into Planet of the Apes than I thought there would be. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about spoilers, talk about the plot of the film. So if you're watching this video to maybe ask yourself, should I go back and watch the original? Yes. We kind of start out following these astronauts through space. The main captain of the ship, Taylor, is trying to get back to Earth. They're talking, they're discussing that if they did make it back to Earth, they would be 700 years in the future. We're just kind of going through their theories of what's kind of going on, why they're out in space, and you're kind of caught up on what's going on in humanity. You know, they've reached the 70s, which is funny because this film came out in 68, so this film is depicting the future, that when we make it to the 70s, we are traveling space, which I thought was just kind of funny. But we get this really cool scene where they are traveling space and then they end up going into a deep sleep and they wake up and they've crash landed in an ocean of a foreign planet. They explore. Honestly, their exploration of the planet, I was enjoying this so much that I kind of forgot about the whole apes for a minute. You know, I'm gonna go ahead just so that I can talk about it throughout the rest of the video and reveal the big twist at the end of the film, which is they're on Earth. This is Earth. They made it back. So they're exploring their home planet like it is the first time humans have made it to Mars. Like, this is a foreign planet they're searching across, and it just kind of makes for a cool plot, and I'm kind of following. I'm very into what's going on here, and then we get to a human tribe, and they seem to be in a primitive caveman era of their humanity, and that's when they all start running from a horde of apes with guns on horses. And this is just absolutely insanity on screen. It makes for an awesome moment just to see a bunch of apes on horses toting guns around, commanding humans. It just looks so abnormal that I love to see it on screen, I found, in my recent Planet of the Apes binge of movies. I'm still thrown when we kind of get back to their little tribal area, and these apes are just talking like I am in this video. I wasn't really expecting this. You know, I watched the new trilogy of films where Caesar kind of has to learn to talk over time, and these apes are well into their civilization. You know, they have culture, religion, science, medicine. This whole aspect of the film I wasn't really expecting, but I did kind of grow to like. But throughout the first part of the film, before you even get to the apes, you find out immediately that the score of this film is awesome, the music is great, the cinematography surprised me. When I think of watching older movies, I think of a more simple cinematic style, but when you get into the 60s and really into the 70s, they have just as much camera movement and just as many toys to play with as we have today. You know, obviously we have a lot more, but man, I am still just kind of in shock when I watch 60s and 70s films that are shot on these gimbals and cranes, and just the way they get creative to move the camera is amazing. This film is no different. I just mentioned the music and the cinematography. I want to talk about the writing for a second. There are little quirky, weird moments in the writing as well. When one of the astronauts puts the American flag down on the beach once they finally make it to some land, Taylor looks at it and starts hysterically laughing at it. And this moment felt out of place in the film, and I kind of get the irony. I mentioned the newer trilogy of the Planet of the Apes films, some names reused from the original. We have Bright Eyes, Nova, Cornelius, and you know, I'm sure there's even more here throughout the rest of the Apes franchise, including the original sequels, and you know, I haven't even seen Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes yet, so they've reused a bunch of names here, and I think that's really cool. Given I was kind of under the impression that all of these movies were connected for a little bit, but that is in fact not the case here, especially as you move further down the line in the original films. It just can't be possible. So I've kind of talked about Act 1 and Taylor and the other astronauts getting captured, and as you move into Act 2, it becomes a complete different movie. Taylor is a caged monkey. They've even shot him in the throat so he can't talk. It's kind of just this insane flip to see the monkeys talking and performing, and they're doing lab work on the humans, like in the new movies, they're doing lab work on the apes. Just this cool little flip here, and like I said, because I watched the new movies first, my expectations were just kind of flipped around, so it was fun to watch this version of the story. Truly, I should have started with it. When Taylor does become this caged animal, and they even refer to the humans as animals, which was kind of funny. And then it's this act of the film, too, where he's just kind of trapped and they're not doing much, and you're learning about Cornelius and Gira. I get a little bored. Not much is happening throughout Act 2 besides the main villain ape of the film just kind of being a tyrant. He's just an asshole, truly. His character's interesting too, though. But Act 2 just kind of bores me just a little bit. We have Taylor start the relationship with Nova, who is the woman that he got locked in the cage with so that they could reproduce and, you know, do tests on their kids, and I thought their relationship was really strange in the film. She's not given any character at all. I was thinking maybe at the end of the film we would see her speak, and so you kind of get this pattern of like, oh, the humans do operate normally, they can grow, they can learn, but she never really has any moments of kind of growing besides a smile while they're in the cage. So that part of the film was I really didn't care about. But it's once Cornelius and Zira break Taylor out and you kind of go into Act 3 where the movie grabs me back. I was really entertained throughout their whole escape, and then he's captured. They have the trial, which is a little weird, but I did like it, I'll say. Probably was the best route they could have taken because the action in this film is pretty terrible. So for them to go lean into the well-written dialogue instead of the bad action, I was glad. But the trial is really interesting. You have this science versus faith going on where the main villain of the film is their chief of religion and their chief of science. And these two things are clashing. His relationship with his faith is blocking his pursuit of science, I believe. Maybe this is a statement about real life that the film's trying to make. Can we truly pursue science while 100% aligning ourselves with faith? I don't know. I think the film brings up an interesting point here. But you end up learning in Act 3, once Taylor really escapes from the apes and even grabs a gun and kind of says, hey, I'm in control here. He tells Cornelius, I don't plan on getting captured again. And I love that moment in the film. But he escapes to the cave in the Forbidden Zone, which is just outside of their jungle. There's supposedly artifacts and fossils of a civilization before the apes. And after a little stand down, Taylor tells the main villain that, hey, we're gonna go check this out. And if Cornelius is right here, I'm gonna go my separate ways, and y'all are gonna be cool with Cornelius. If he was right, if there's human artifacts in here, that's how they decide to resolve the plot. And so they go into the cave and they find human skulls. They even find a human doll. Taylor is using this as proof, as hey, there used to be people here. You know, apes weren't the only ones to rule this planet. The main villain he's looking at the evidence, but he's not really buying it. It's when they find a button on the doll, where the doll says mommy, and they're like, but would they have made human dolls that can talk? And this ends up being kind of the bottom line of, this is probably Earth, and something happened to the human race. They end up kind of deciding that that is enough evidence, and Taylor and Nova go on their own way on their own horse, and that is when Taylor finds the Statue of Liberty on the beach, crumbled down. You know, what would have been a wasteland that used to be in New York. So this is a really awesome moment where we end up finding out that humanity wiped itself out. The apes lived, and the apes survived. They were able to learn from humans, learn from their mistakes, and in the later films you end up getting apes strong together because of this. But these apes, I would say, are weak because they are divided. They lie to each other, they don't care about factual evidence, they only care about withholding what they have, and I think that's saying something about the world as well. Science fiction was kind of made off of taking human ideas, disguising them in these science fiction worlds, but still, you know, giving some political messages and some political statements and opinions out through this medium. So Planet of the Apes definitely does it. A ton of other sci-fi does as well. I really enjoyed this film. As a first time watching, you know, I had all the fun you could probably have with this. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a score. And if you're watching this far into the video, I want you to give it a score. In the comments, 1 through 10, let me know what you think. If you've seen the film, if you haven't seen the film, let me know if you plan on going to watch it. IMDb gives it an 8 out of 10, and I loved the film, but there's so many things outdated, like these are humans in monkey costumes, and when they talk, it kind of looks funny. You don't get much emotion from them, but I can look past that. I can look past some of the cheesy effects, and you know, I talked well about the writing, but there's some corny dialogue in there as well, but it's ultimately the story and the immersive atmosphere that the film creates that really just kind of made me fall in love with it. I'm probably not going to watch the sequels because I've read a little bit about how bad they are, but I'll take what I enjoyed from this. I can't give it an 8, but I feel like it's higher than a 7.5, so I'm going to give Planet of the Apes 1968 a 7.8 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy 1968 Planet of the Apes. I do like to get into some of the older films on this show. I've now done this movie and Alien, so I'm hitting a lot of the early science fiction classics. Maybe I'll go through and hit some more. Planet of the Apes was relevant right now, and I wanted to tackle it. We may be doing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes on the channel. I hope you'll check out some of the other content we've made. We've done a Studio Cinema Saturday over Alien, Rebel Moon, Civil War, Oppenheimer. We've hit a bunch of the bigger movies that are coming out, so I hope you'll check some of that out. We have Television Tuesday, where we're covering TV like Game of Thrones, X-Men 97, House of the Dragon, Avatar The Last Airbender. So much more cool stuff on the way, and I hope you'll stick around for it. I'll see you there.